in an overstuffed sonnet called To Not, has 18 lines. The speaker invokes a couple that would but cannot, two-parted figures, lovers with timorous bodies, missing, calling each other by the name of a single cloud, report last. Another poem begins.
Jesus teaches that on the day when you were one, you became two. And then sharply asks, but when you become two, what will you do? The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, teaching on duality in Tao Te Ching number 42, is sometimes translated as saying, one gives birth to two. At other times, people translate it as the one gave birth to two. Think about that. The attractions and risks of doubling, twinning, mirroring are addressed early on in Shangyang's wonderful first collection, Burying the Mountain. Get a copy, 100%. A, quote, phenomenologically central position, he says, arises when the marble is replaced with a you and you, an axis around which fabrics of awareness undulate, coordinate. Here, the experience of acute awareness is founded in a split in consciousness that it revolves around an axis, much as DNA's double helix climbs up its ladder of chromosomes. Shangyang's double may take shape within a perceiver as if vertically. He writes in his mind, the boy sculpts a dream being, another boy, too beautiful, not like a boy at all. Or doppelgangers may approach and depart horizontally. For example, my doppelganger, in spaces physically outside the speaker. He writes, I'll only sleep on the left side. We go. He writes, I'll only sleep on the left side where you once slept, leaving the right empty, pretending I am not there. I kind of do the exact opposite of that, but I know the feeling. Being a bachelor. I only visited Shangyang's home city of Chengdu once for 5 or 6 nights in 1994.
Wow, I was born then.
Yeah. Right, so we got a little bit of an age difference going, but you know, still trying to keep my youthful glow. Anyway, I only visited Shangyang's home city of Chengdu once. It was in 1994. I was on my way to Lhasa, going up to Xinjiang province and take a bus from there into Tibet. So I really can't claim any insight at all into the place. I get high on hashish in the morning and then groggily cross and recross the Fuhe and Nanhe rivers. It was raining all the time. There was no Latin alphabet to be seen. It was just Chinese characters and Greek numerals. And I felt like I was a soap bubble of like English. Anyway, I was walking through the park and I came across this woman sitting on a stool. There's an empty stool in front of her. And there was a cardboard tray on her lap that had these implements that looked like tweezers or something that had been sundered in these little metal rods. And then this man sat down. She took the rods and started sticking them into his ear, right? And cleaning it out. You know, I was like, that's a little dangerous, right? But she was an expert, so he was there to get his ears cleaned. So anyway, that long digression is because I think it's an apt metaphor for Shangyang's work. His poems carefully but relentlessly remove our built-up readerly earwax so we can begin to hear a poetry that's truly new. Even when its subjects are unavoidably two, Shangyang's poetry is one of a kind. As he writes, when I turn my face back from the window with your face in my hands, it is through your eyes the universe sees itself. It's my honor to introduce Shangyang Fang.
Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you everyone for coming tonight on a rainy night. And I realized some familiar faces from last week's reading across the street at Harvard. So it forces me to change the reading program today. So because I don't want to repeat myself. And on our way here, the red line T broke down, of course. So we're a bit late. And I was thinking on the train, I thought, when the train is broken down, is it still a train? So here is the first poem about something that carries us to a horse, very ancient. I'll set a timer here so that I don't exceed my time. It is sad to see a horse sleeping. A horse is not a horse when it's not running. If a grasshopper could be a horse, if a bruised boy. I can't remember how I found myself inside this story. Have I appeared too late in a scheme, too late to save anything? Already it's evening, the grass shines its invisible green, the meadow and emerald posing in a breast pocket. The mountains behind, now the horse, a windmill in the field, the mountains behind it insurmountable. Say it's the last horse in the world. Say a bruised flower scents better than those intact. Or I can still save the horse, and in saving the horse, I will save myself. But the horse has trained itself well with terrible horselessness. The horse is a broken fruit, a sweetness no one can relish. Wake up, broken fruit. I shake him. The horse isn't responding. I lift his neck, strap his belly like a scarf on my shoulders, and carry the horse until my spine aches when the stem of asthe breaks 10,000 miles away. Of course, when the horse is broken down, you can carry the horse if you're strong enough, but you can't carry the train. That's the difference between the hyperreal and surreal. One is highly unlikely but possible, the other is impossible. Lie beyond. One would always fall in love with a man beside Jesus in any 17th century oil painting, preferably Flemish, so that the tone is darker, cold, therefore 1 inch closer to eternity. The man is either passing a jar of water, doling loaves of bread, or weeping ceaselessly like a dog beside Jesus' feet. His left ankle dissolves into the darkish purple shadow of a cypress, his face half seen, and that makes him more beautiful. Though Jesus too, I confess, must be beautiful, though I cannot love a man with bearded chin like my father, and to fall in love with the protagonist forebodes tragedy. I want life I can cope with easily, like washing watercress at a sink. The weather in mind is so lovely this afternoon, one can saunter into any museum and fall in love with figures that are not human. Isn't that what we do, after all? Without imagining his red and brown vestment falling down, the garment, his very skin voluptuous, percolated with tears, I find him more seductive, perilous. Maybe he is a saint or something like, who has no desire for earthly bodies the way I do most days, studying your sandals at the doorstep, conceptualizing you whole, or tonight with your back turned to me, spine white in the moonlight, pretending to lie beyond my attention. You can find a chair to sit if there's still space. What sustains in this autumn rain? It'd be nice to see a stray dog limping along the sidewalk, so you understand that sadness is not original. The dog curls cold in my mind as an unlit wick, which you refuse to kindle. Here, touch its waterlogged hair. The dog won't bite. The dog is not looking for a bone. But there is no dog, you say. It is just a puddle in the middle of the road, which I have mistaken for a dog. Sometimes pain does not require a form. Sometimes it is all right to cry through another pair of eyes. The dog is there, barking blue, its whole body a torn fabric ringing in rain. Now you can see what I see. The stray dog is happy, happy, without any bones, unchained, chasing after his imaginary master. And the next poem is a prompt. I hope if there are any poets sitting here, it's an assignment poem I wrote as a student in classroom. If anyone's poets here, write down the prompt. It's very fun to do. So here are the prompts. First, the poem should be a narrative poem. All of a sudden, fuck, narrative. Second, in the poem, an invitation is either given or received. In the poem, there must be someone or something crossing a body of water, river, lake. In the poem, the word then must be used 5 times. That's hard. That's difficult. I'll review who gave me that prompt later. Not an easy person. In the movie theater, after Gustave Flaubert, they find a dark corner to sit, behind them the acoustic bat. The movie is about eros, about 2 men in love, then failing to love. The kind that is banished in China, where they are, in this impoverished town of a province in the West, famous for its radish beef noodles stippled with cilantro, Han Dynasty battlefields on lowest plateaus, grapes, and parched hands. The ceiling lights darken, so one moves his clandestine hand to the other's denim shorts, and he lets it happen. It's like having caterpillars throbbing inside his leg veins, he thinks. His stomach cramps. His hand arranges itself across the fly of the other's pants, thin fabric of wool shaped muscular by his thighs. Together, they escape this town of dreadful tricycles, blast hole drills for coal, scandals and gossips, stripped like the featherless roosters at the market downstairs from his mother's apartment. That is why the movie is in a language they can't comprehend. French or English or Italian sounds the same, sharp consonants like popcorn scraping their gums. One turns his face to the walled darkness as the handsome actors walked to a church of Saint something, then a colored pebble lane named after a philosopher or a poet, then a bar of incredible botanical decor. And the liquor, why is it green? Then a cemetery of great men who are said to have changed the world but not theirs. Each tombstone a stately gaze beneath the cypresses, its sign language of imminent loss. Then the harbor of tired ships, where kisses should have taken place, like fireworks, but did not. The hyacinths he bought this morning are dying for tap water, so he invited him for swimming next month when he comes back from business in Ohio, America. Though the other couldn't practice his promise, he died for a reason that borders on homoerotic cliche. And the movie ended with a scene where the man returned to scatter hyacinth petals on a body of water, like baby steps of St. Peter, he said, like steps of St. Peter walking to greet Jesus, who this time lets him drown. The cinema smells of tobacco and piss. Scraps of napkin tossed like the torn wings of butterflies, liquefied in the touch of fluorescent lamps. One of them opens his hand, asking for nothing, which he receives. Since Chris mentioned the penis poem, everyone is fine with that word in this room? Okay, just to make sure. I had a dream before writing this poem. I wrote this poem on a bus. And the dream was my mom was cooking me goat's penis. I was like, wow, I've never had that in my life. And I don't expect to have it. But what a strange dream. Satyr's flute. I was skinning a goat's penis to prepare the dish my mother had taught me. This was not in a dream, though with the dream's deliciousness, the knife, a stroke of blueness, tapered the bleeding thing into a sheer bruise. One must always be careful with the penis. One must marinate it in a pool of oyster sauce with starch, sprinkle ginger juice to cleanse its urinous smell of fish ichthyophallic, as Rimbaud may have said. Let the residue of semen ferment with blood and the blueness into an evening sky like this, when the penis starts weeping ceaselessly, softly at first, like a newborn, then louder, until the kitchen turns into a train station from which the goat was brought to the nearest butchery. The penis cries like a baby. Like a baby, it cries for its wanting. Without the mind, the penis is innocent. The penis wants its goat back the way a child wants his mother's milk, and the goat without its penis, is it anyway a goat half male? Will it go crazy looking at the moon? Will it serve the goat king like a eunuch in a primeval dynasty? Or it will follow the rancid smell of dead fish past the meadow, past the bullying woods, to reach the lamp-black river and watch the water flow, watch the needles of fish sowing the stream and wish one of them was his genital. The penis in my hand is thick and emblematic, something I cannot fully fathom. A device without the service of its mind. How does that work? How, in heaven's name, can a mind bear to lose a part of its form and stomach the loss as a thought? The thought of a penis, being nothing otherwise, is not a penis. How my mother once saw me with the boy, how she said no, the N preceding the choir of the O is like a castration that severed me from her. I rushed back to my room, stayed a whole afternoon in front of the mirror and thought I am not beautiful, thought she was right. No, I cannot love this boy in front of me, and wished he had not been born. Now I can see how the goat, disturbed by his forbidden thoughts, staggers toward that river, mates with deliquescent nymphs, Hermes into Hermaphroditus, whose lilac-encased body, androgynous and gorgeous, once drowned and rose from the rootless water. And I see the meadow outside the kitchen is purple, an infecting pool of neutering tincture. The penis, enveloped inside my hands, is old and tired, like a fetus curling back toward an anonymous uterus. I read two more poems. Forgive me for finding the poem. Serenade behind a floating stage. My friend called and said that sex saved him. He made me listen to streets in the Philippines, waking up in rain, pains, and trees, repeating a low note of C, chorister, cage. A choir captures the cadenza of falling cardamoms, then the chords of quietude. So eventually it was the cue, queer, he said, the parched hands of the quarryman whom he loved briefly for an afternoon. For so long we've mistaken the cue for C. Weeping, he then recited the passage of the Sarangama Sutra, an odd phonetic transcription from the Tang dynasty. The power, he insisted, is in the sonnets, not in its meaning, its attachment. This persistent, desperate, loud howl of August is but the insect's thirst for mating and survival. Rawness, for years my life depends on the false letter, and as consequence, instead of the quiet, a cry drills the carnage of my heart. Had I chosen the path of Q, its hidden U might have entered me with a silence to which my heart would yield as the hollow inside an oboe. The cicadas continue practicing deft mastery of invisibility. I join their quartet, where the moon streaks through the night, makes a sound of fabric being torn inside my head. Dark and huge, it is frightening to be alive with a song in you. The last poem I'm going to read is very short, and I decided to read this poem. It's new. It's not very good. It's short and new, and it's because one of my close mentor who used to live in Cambridge, and I used to come here when I was a student in California, come here and visit her. And last summer when we parted, and I was very sentimental, sad, not knowing when would I see her again. And she said, don't get into that mood of valediction. As long as I'm alive, I'll see you. You can always come to me. I was like, valediction, how pretentious, that diction of yours. But she passed away last year. And it was like the Cavafy poem, the end of the Cavafy poem. It said, we separated for 1 week only. That week became forever. And this is one of the last poems she revised for me. She also gave those extremely hard prompts. One Life for Louise Glick. I woke up, then everyone asked me to look. Look, the world is splendid, so the world became splendid. I looked, pretending to be one sedulous student. Listen, if you look long enough, you will become splendid. I pretended I could catch up, but the lessons were tough. This is your toothbrush, and this is mine. This is grief. This is a chair in which you will sit crying for me. This is memory. You will continue to live. The wind shall continue to be loud among the birches, and the sunsets shall keep vanishing behind your balcony. But of what is there to be afraid? All these hypotheses, nights of vast constellations, while you hang your slim body like a clean shirt on the railing. Thank you.
That was great. It was great. One more round of applause for Shangyang Fang. Amazing. Amazing. So glad that I'm here for this with you all. Feel very lucky, in fact. Also to be introducing C. Francis Fisher. And if you don't already know, the C stands for Catherine. Is it okay if I call you Catherine?
Call me Catherine, yeah, of course.
just this once. All right. So Catherine, yeah, what can I say? I just met Catherine quite recently, and in like short time, I learned that she'd moved to Boston, ran the New York Marathon, and started jumping in like the freezing waters of the bay or something with these like old Irish dudes. And I'm like, wow, I was impressed. Like I finally managed to go for a jog the other day, but like I have much to learn. So Catherine repackages the fruits of introspective musing in stanzas that fit just so. She wraps them up and she generously ties a bow on top. Open up to Catherine's poems, and they open up to you. Frankly, often gleefully. Surprise gifts you didn't know you needed but will treasure. Catherine works the field of the quotidian, the diaristic, the dailiness that we all share. Her insights don't thud with attempted profundity or pound the table to gain an audience. I love that Catherine doesn't grip her poems' butterflies too tight or kill them by pinning them to the page. These poems are gentle nets of observation. They capture us for a moment, then release us, calling with no small optimism across the river Styx to her beloved Eurydice, Frank O'Hara. She enthuses, I want to write like you, Frank. And as we know, many current poets, to be sure, share this ambition, writing diaristic poems that proffer chestnuts of wisdom. What sets Catherine apart is her apparently carefree but difficultly won lightness of touch. She makes it look easy, even when touching subjects awkward, painful, embarrassing, or grave and dark. She's courageously direct, discerning, fresh, and true. Whether she's asserting her feminine freedom, she writes, I was a woman, not an instrument. Recounting sibling rivalry, she writes that with inexplicable rage, let's try that again. With inexplicable rage, I cut my brother's face from a photo. Considering a blowjob in New York's Angelica Film Center, she writes, you might push your soft cock down my throat. You notice that penises will run through introductions. I hope that's okay. I just found them in every book. I was like, I've got to work it in somehow. Or facing down our terrifying eventualities. You guys are serious. Okay. I got terrifying eventualities now, so that should sit well. She writes of the body I wore, which sometimes, despite its capacities, seemed like nothing at all. Often inward facing, but no absent-minded professor of her poetic, Catherine lends us courage to ride to the last stop, the little engines that clatter down our minds' tracks. And the tracks of her tears, to quote Smokey Robinson, can often be seen to glimmer through her bright humor, sarcastic shade, brash hilarity, and recurrent wonder. I'm so grateful for Catherine's gifts, and I'm just delighted to be here to introduce C. Francis Fisher.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chris, very much for that lovely introduction. And thank you to Shangyang, who has made many of these poems better. And a big thank you to James for having us here at Grolier. And so I'm going to be reading a few poems from this chapbook I called Metropolis that Eli Watson put out. But I think that, you guys should buy the book, so I'm only going to read a few. And then you have to buy it to find out what else happens. I wish it were like that with poetry, You could wait to find out what else happened. Okay. I called Metropolis. As a child, I collected snails. For hours, I'd wrench the little scrolls from their homes and bring them to a pool I called Metropolis, marked with a flag made of driftwood and seaweed. Then I became confused which tide pool was my little city-state, and began again. Last night at the dinner party, a woman with 2 small children asked each guest if they loved one parent more than the other. Everyone said yes. Most preferred their fathers, which seemed surprising, but then we were gathered there to celebrate a man. Back at the house, the boardwalk snakes towards the beach like an appendage. The Perseid rages overhead, but I am never patient enough to see a shooting star, tail as long as my life. This time of year, blueberries swarm bushes malignantly. I eat till I am sick. Now I know many things I would like to forget. How long a rat takes to decompose, that children are masters of futility, what an angel looks like on all fours. Night arrives from the cliffs, a swift falling. Beyond each rock, water pins stars stir. I gave this chapbook to my parents as a Hanukkah present, and in an earlier version of this poem, it had a line about how I love both of my parents equally. And my mom calls me and she doesn't say anything except, I'm just glad to know that you love us equally. And I've taken it out. I hope she's not mad. Dear Orpheus, I had many strange fears. Quiet libraries, winter oyster eating, the body I wore, which sometimes, despite its capacities, seemed like nothing at all. Any moment in February. I was a woman, not an instrument, but you always said my laugh sounded like cold water. So what? I went walking in a field all alone. I was shaking off my fear of eternity. And yes, there was a snake, but I was thankful. For the moment, I found myself truly alone, completely my own, in the earth who swiftly took hold. You came only as interruption. In the locker room after hot yoga, the women team around me, Venus de Milos with their heads intact and arms that pull wet clothes from their white skin like so many marble physiques. The price for this body is $35 per hour. I am something worse than a bull in a china shop, less destructive. No one fears me. I simply smell wrong and grow hair in wrong places. Meanwhile, these women have dimples above their butts where God grabbed them and pressed his thumbs into their lower back in an attempt to hold on to this beautiful creation. I was made woman once, and that is a tragedy, but I am not ashamed of my body or my sex, only I forget them often. Okay. We're gonna move on. We're gonna lighten the mood. I have some new poems, and you can laugh. It's nice to laugh at a poetry reading. It's always nice to laugh, but especially when you're not supposed to. And fittingly, this is called Who's Laughing Now? And that should be you.
Pressure.
Just kidding. Who's laughing now? Today, no one can tell the difference between man and woman. It makes them desperate. Still, women have bodies like a garage door, segmented and made to open. The truth makes children cry. Your well-tempered words and their satin sheets, your smile with gold teeth hugging gems, and eclair as a nose, creamy and long. How can we avoid the phallic shape of foods demeaning our mouths? Hot dogs, popsicles, bananas, the eyes you can't avoid. I want to be a doll, aiming for the distance. Did you know they moved the Mississippi once to make room for houses and farmland? Now, during storms, it bursts the banks and we call it a flood. You spit, and the whole orbit swims in my hand. I'm translating a book that is coming out in May by Joyce Mansour, the wonderful, little known in English, French surrealist poet. And I stole one of those lines from her. And you'll just have to read the book to find out which. Okay. What else? What else do we have here? So I moved to Boston recently, and I've been having a lot of fun going to all of the little towns in the New England area. We went to New Bedford yesterday because Dana and I are reading Moby Dick, which is a lot of fun. But this one's about Salem. Salem, Massachusetts. Purple shards of mussel shells plot in the sand. The ocean stills itself, and the boat's restless sails sulk silently. Nothing moves this morning, as I wonder why it is women who are accused of evil. How can you know you are no witch and yet not know what a witch is? He asked. Turned you to a house with a steep pitched roof and large central chimney. But what could you say of the extreme weather, the bad crops and bored teens, our border wars? Winter sunlight. Like the murmuration of sparrows, visible for a moment before going scattershot. Or like your love, given freely, then taken, and now returned. I might be another in a long line of women. Perhaps I am Anna, waiting for Vronsky, knowing I have given it all up. Or Emma, driven to outrageous passions, only to end it all after some unsatisfying affair. Of course, a woman is never the problem. Still, they do not trust me, knowing I walk among them an imposter. The men also know, but it makes them want me. We discuss basketball and the way persimmon's skin smells just like cum. I have spilled much thought on this question of belonging, on the illusion of shared experience, as if such a thing were possible, when in the corner of everything I've ever seen lurks my own nose. I admit, I am a problem. The way I forget it all, articulated most recently in the way I forgot you, had given me beautiful dark purple plums, almost midnight, and when I remembered the fruit, rotten and black, was a puddle of itself. These are all new. The only way to keep yourself sane is just writing more new things until you go crazy. And the craziest of all is this. Not really that crazy, but I've been working on something new. And it's this, although I've lost my first page. Can it be? No. Technical difficulties. I think it's in my bag. Hold on. You're being very patient. Oh my God, I found it. Okay. All right. Well, if you haven't laughed now, you should consider it. This poem, I've been adding to it. I don't really know where it's going or how long it will get, but for now it's called Every Driver on the Road Has Hatred in Their Heart. Paved cow paths. That's how someone explained them once. Meandering and organic. The natural doesn't translate well to the mechanical. Turkeys cross the road. Obscene waddles and snoods in the midday light. I'd cover a child's eyes if I had one. And a man rolls down his window to yell at them. And they open their beaks to say, I'm walking here. Must have flown in from the city. And the man rolls that window right back up, cowed. At the funeral, there's no casket. The priest asks the crowd to confess. Personally, I've never sinned a day in my life, and I'll tell you that for free. Peeing in the shower is just like singing in the rain. Something comes out of you, something falls over you, like having a baby, I imagine. Something else to try in the bathroom. Shitting on the toilet while you eat. Pure digestion, totally cutting out the middleman. For almost 6 months, I've been plugging the bath with toys people put in their ass during sex. I can't make this shit up. Well, that's just an expression. I can make anything up, but I didn't in this case. My imagination prefers the banal, like when I used the bidet, and it took me a second to figure out how to turn it off. Came back to the table, we were at a restaurant, and told N I'd flooded the bathroom. He calls this lying. If words without thoughts never to heaven go, where do thoughts without words end up? Crenulations and blissful blabbering, the sound in summer of children playing while you were told to go to bed. Above all, we were wet. I had a vision. I don't like birds with their chaotic wings. Flowers on the curtains become faces in the half light. Now, oh no. I really should have ordered these. This is so bad. Now, you're on the edge of your seat. Now, oh, here we go. Now I meet mothers before their children. They tell me about having grapes for fear their offspring might swallow them whole. It is terrifying to be a mother, and just as terrifying to have one. Water bubbles up from the drain. Tulips arch their backs. In my dream, the table is gone, and so are you. Your teeth are level, as if descended from a different kind of man, one who resented the violence of flesh. When you smile, I feel comfortable sliding my fingers between those flat canines to feel them crush. I cover dried chickpeas in water. They look like the decimated brains of some ancient thing. I cover the mouth of the jar in paper towel and secure it with an elastic. There, now it's wearing a bonnet. Jar goes in cupboard, and a few hours later, the little things have swollen to twice their size. Why am I so cruel to everything that loves me? How did such a humble being gain so many names? I'll stop there. And I'll think about the garbanzo bean. And I'll read one more from this chapbook. Afterlife. Once the cat was dead, we drove to Sunset Park and ordered roast duck heads from a Sichuanese restaurant. The best way to eat them, yank the bottom beak till the tongue comes loose. I accidentally squished eyeballs between my molars. When my grandmother was alive, she made lamb chops, let me gnaw the bones clean and throw them over my shoulder. Other things I learned as a child, French, flossing, fractions, that I am not, in fact, a horse. The grass I took for lunch turned up green and foamy on the carpeted floor. Last night, I was the one who found the cat panting in the tub. You became convinced of the need to take her on the roof so she could see the sky, then wring her neck with your bare hands. I would have let you do it if we had a shotgun, but we live in Brooklyn. And the cat certainly would have let you do it, since she loved you desperately in the way only dying things can. Thank you.
Hey, one more round of applause for Catherine.
Excellent, right? So far, so amazing. And I love that moment in one of those poems where you're like in the corner of everything I've ever seen, the point of my nose. That's one of those meta moments, right? You ever been reading a book, or W.H. Auden has a poem called Century of Hands, and he just talks about hands for the whole poem, and you're like, I'm holding this book with my hands. Oh my God, Charlie Kaufman should make a movie about this. Anyway, one more poet, the excellent Charles Kell. See if I can find my notes on him. Really been fun. I didn't meet Charles until tonight, but I was lucky enough that he sent me PDFs of his books, and I went through them, and it's exciting. Charles Kell follows Franz Kafka into tight spaces, not unlike those that Kafka's character K gets himself into. If you've read The Castle, you'll remember the taproom straw where K made himself a bed right down on the floor, or the small schoolroom which K has to kind of stay in for a few days. Charles titles several poems after Kafka's work. For example, In the Penal Colony, The Trial, and Hunger Artist. There are others too. Franz and Charles share a queasy claustrophobia tinged with a certain fascination, I think, with being caught and held and boxed in. The speakers in Charles's poems not infrequently begin and end up confined to too few square feet. Works like 2 Weeks in a Locked Attic, a few poems called In a Dark Room, and one called A Cell the Shape of a Ring are just some examples of the kinds of physical detention Charles imagines or describes or narrates, or all of the above, reminding us that, quote, my last name rhymes with jail cell. I think it does, right? Kell and cell. Charles is also fascinated by and makes fascinating a certain species of Gothic romantic body horror. One speaker invites us to take my eyes outside, let them float overhead. My body is mostly water. Blood drip from a soft razor prick. Another announces, my heart is made of burnt blue steel. And one poem begins with a disquieting observation about the reader, or more likely perhaps a second person self-address. Red dots on your upper arm, raw from scratching. Charles seemingly mines his memory for, or invents, or both, incidents of fleeting romantic encounter, youthful erotic play misunderstood at the time by their star players. Memorably in this vein, and for my trifecta, the poem in Artist begins, Lucy sprays an ejaculating cock on the side of the water tower, and later explains, what I thought would take forever was over in seconds. Skin pressing, scrape of chapped lips. Lucy's breath is metal and cigarettes. In Charles's new book, Ishmael Mask, the poem's narrators speak through and to Melville's many ambiguities, not least the simultaneously fleshy life, that missing leg, and the spiritual monomania of Ahab. Charles's white whale, I suspect, white whale, it seems at times is a more accurate description of fearsome locations and of their denizens that might even exercise memory's demons. At the same time, with a probing and empathetic curiosity that seems to grow from poem to poem, more and more generous, Cole turns his eye outward to allow us in as he cries out, squeezed into the seat of a Greyhound near Newark, New Jersey. Oh, how each person is traveling to or from. Oh, how each person is busy writing the book of life. Someone might call these poems surreal, and I guess that would be true if we remember the word's etymology as super real, more than real. Charles's uncanny is physically nervy and spiritually wrenching. As Morrissey once asked us all, how can you call this a home when you know it's a grave? If Charles doesn't ever quite answer this question, he poses it in myriad novel ways. I feel very lucky to be here to introduce Charles Kell tonight.
Thank you so much, Chris, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, James, for setting everything up, and my fellow readers who were wonderful. I'm going to read 4 poems from Ishmael Mask, and I'm going to read 4 new poems. So here we go. As Chris mentioned, Ishmael Mask references a bunch of Melville characters. Kafka's in here as well. There's some Moby Dick, our friend Bartleby, but a lot of Pierre Glendenning from Pierre of the Ambiguities. This poem is called Frames. It has nothing to do with Melville, Kafka, or any of those characters yet. Frames. The scene moves farther away while you consider the dinner tables, little archipelagos in your anesthetic sway. How each one belongs not here. How a squiggly line forms the shade of one eye, lashes, the charcoal bridge of a nose, the shoulders which descend to nothing. For the moment, we are floating out on one of the black islands you described so clearly. Serene comfort, you say, though your eyes bore into me a lightning not unlike a rusty cattle prod. One thinks of all the innocent, harmed someone, mutilated beyond recognition, frozen horror trapped on their faces. I count how you used to come to me, curl in a ball, pressing against. How you recalled your dreams over morning coffee. How you described each month as if it were a color. How I took you to the hospital. November, you say. I forget why. January, orange. July, the month you hated most, pink. How the last time you drove yourself while I stayed behind, staring into a forest from the window, waiting, a reminder that one could draw loss, draw frost without anyone knowing what it is, draw the color of night, draw for the final time, the light reaching the trees into nowhere. This poem, well, first off, forgive my self-indulgence, megalomania, because this poem's called Poetry. And I mentioned my name twice in it. So what is more hubristic than that? And this is another poem that when I first wrote it and read it, I was like, damn, this is a laugh out loud riot. And then I read it, and people were like, Charles, this poem isn't funny. But then some people think it's fun. But I don't know, I write these poems and I think I'm laughing, and people read them and I don't know if they think they're funny. So this is called Poetry. Charles Kell in his cell. On rusty springs, staring through a window at a distant tree, dreaming of the wine dark sea. He should be taken behind the fence and beaten. His leger hand, chopped and stowed so students can study it as they do pig fetuses in formaldehyde. The monster should move no more. He wants to be a tree, pumpkin head patched with moss, a pile of dust. Charles Kell, kill yourself. This poem's called Poker, and I'm thinking of a favorite poet that I love, the Slovene Tomáš Šalamun. I'm also thinking of another famous poet who has the lines, you know I'm born to lose, gambling for fools, that's the way I like it, baby, I don't want to live forever. The famous poet Lemmy, Motorhead. This is Poker. Hard to run with hands tied behind my back. I give a little skip over ash, ocean, sagebrush to show my defiant will. A cloud mocks me with its opulent sway. Weeks since I threw away my pills. Days since my last bottle drained. I can fly. The dregs dance in anticipation. A deck of cards balances bareback. Top rhomboids hold the queen of spades. Wherever I turn, there's my face. A mask of gin, mask of Klonopin, a mask built from closely watching water, watching air. And this poem is in sections. It takes titles from another writer I love is Beckett. I'm a Beckett freak. This takes a bunch of titles from Beckett works, and the overarching title is called Cascanda, which means a diminishing of tone, decrescendo. 1. Footfalls. The guard orders me to strip, hands over a small bar of white soap, watches me duck under a cold spray of water. You work out, he asks, slight grin on his lips. He passes me an orange shirt, orange pants I must reach for. My feet squeak in rubber soles down the hall. 2. Failisson. Blue jeans bunched around ankles. Shirt hangs on a hook. Close my eyes to feel each limb contract. Hear a muffled voice over the Macy's intercom. Open my eyes to see a head, waist level, moving back and forth in the mirror in front of me. For a second, the brown hair looks like mine, the jagged scar on the side of the neck. 100 open safety pins on the dirty carpet. 3. The lost ones. Tin foil spins on the linoleum under shimmering fluorescent light. In the soft gray evenings, this is how we'd vanish. Chalk from chewed pills stuck in our teeth. Ginger ale. 2 lamps throwing stale cigarette smoke. You trace my hand on a cardboard box. Whispered, this is where our ardor lies, where art intersects. I crushed your lips, gently kissed your forehead, spit on the floor. 4. Stirring still. In black light at the beginning of January, in the trailer park, buzzed on Jack Daniels and laughing as we scream, parachute woman, land on me tonight. The Stones song from Beggar's Banquet. The boy blows a thin brown line off a Rolling Stones record sleeve. Beggar's Banquet. Yellow-hued toilet stuck under graffitied walls, calling us to sniff until our rusty noses run red. Again, I'm painting him. His skeleton-thin body beats a beat of time on a broken amp, and I stare. 5. Ill seen, ill said. Another skin's graffiti rubbing off on me. I stood in front of everyone, and they all knew I was guilty. A man sat in a small wooden chair watching me stride back and forth. He was scared of what I would do if left alone, fearing nothing and no one. 6. In my cell. Pacing bare-chested, sweat runs down the small of my back. 300 more push-ups, and then I'll jack off. Orange shirt rolled in a ball on the metal bed. With a long fingernail, I trace my name into the concrete wall. 7. Brevity. Codeine, twine, climb Jacob's ladder, above is air and air. Green tetrahedron curls from my eye, mouth full of plaster, cellar door. Whisper Nebenwald as an IV drips. Eels dance in blue Scylla. It's great being here, seeing one of my old students, Nina, is here tonight. So nice. I still have your poem in my office, Pianist. Yeah, with the I love that poem. Today I was lucky enough to have the poet Timothy Liu visit my class at CCRI, and I was with him over the summer, and he gave me some great advice about going back and writing some hard stuff with poems. In the class visit today, in his new book, he has a poem called Fever 103, and with echoes of the Plath poem, and he recited the Plath poem from memory, Fever 103. And in my next class, he recited, I heard a fly buzz, and gave a talk on that. So here's a few new poems. The first three compose a little like sweet SUITE of addiction poems. J. Hopler, that's the name of the person, after the poet, whom I love, J. Hopler. A ghost floats through the hole in the wall, rereading Green Squall, thinking about family, money. The ghost today isn't who he used to be. Blood caked into my jeans, dried dirt on my boots. I shuffled over red carpet, dripped red wine on my shirt. There was a host, there was a hostess, nibbled the most flavorful brie. I OD'd once, curled my toes in warm mud. There's a ghost down the hall who lives in wall. Again, reading Green Squall. Life is long sentences, brief reprieve, no escape. I've been sniffing amyl nitrate. These next two poems were written rather recently. In my class, we did, well, I'm given trigger warnings for these poems because, well, the first one's a pantoum and the next one's a villanelle. And I have a friend who's like, Kell, damn it, don't write any more villanelles. I'm sick of villanelles. So if you, my trigger warning is if you hate villanelles, you can run from the room. Here's a pantoum. We just did a section in my class at CCRI on pantoums and villanelles, so they just came from that. Plastic cup. Pissing in a plastic cup with Dave, my PO, up against me. I stare out the window at a brick wall wishing to be anywhere else. The parole officer hovers over me, whispers, "What's wrong, Charlie?" in my ear. Wishing of somewhere else. Work, the library, anything but here. Dave whispers, "Where are you going, Charlie?" He doesn't know I'm leaving soon. Work, library, the gym, or school, not here. I'm writing a book of glass that will dance in the air. No one knows I'm leaving soon, but right now I have nowhere to go, except into this book of glass that dances in the air, where my teeth will ring and I'll disappear. At this moment, there's no place to go. A spider sleeps in the ceiling's black crack. Soon my teeth will ring like a bomb and I'll disappear. You think I'm lying? Look at me watch a spider sleep peacefully in the crack, then stare out the window at a brick wall. You think I'm a liar? Look at me pissing in a plastic cup. The villanelle is called Atheist in AA. Are any of you, if you're familiar with AA, well, Atheist in AA is the name of the villanelle. I believe in nothing, not even today. A miracle we don't melt in the bath like a piece of soap. Addiction is sickness celebrating itself, I heard someone say. The truth, I guess, is that it never goes away. Green faces on Medusa's raft, grasping for rope, believing nothing, not even today. An attempt to think different while feeling the same way. Laugh in the mirror, breathe deep, hope there's still hope. Addiction is sickness celebrating itself. Hear someone pray. Gogol on his horse, keeping the gnashing wolves at bay. Fixate on the past. Let go. This moment, the only way to cope. Whisper, I believe in nothing, not even today. In another life, I'm a boat on the water, drifting away, trying to reach the shore. I've paid for another tired trope. Addiction is sickness celebrating itself, hear someone say. It's a miracle that I'm here to replay the jukebox Jack Daniels, car wrecks, prison, dope. Do I still believe in nothing? Not even today? Addiction is sickness celebrating itself. Please stay. And that's the end of the addiction suite. Here's a deep well. The country slept as I wandered through thickets of damp grass. I had wants, inside burned an illiterate lust. Maybe scratching my cheek against the bark of an oak could calm this fire. My eye caught a shimmer of stone, intricate work weaved in a circle. I crept and peered down into a deep well, saw black, felt wind whip my brow. I dropped a pebble into the void, waited to hear splash, but instead the drumming of palm on flesh. I felt drunk, so I took off my clothes and climbed in. It were as though my feet broke ice, my hot hands slipped down the mossy sides. All at once, a dozen fingers gripped my skin. I heard a piano, then listened to whispers just out of reach. A young boy in a soft voice said my name. Then the sharp pinch of a claw on my chest. I know you don't believe me, but I remember being in the womb. I kicked and flailed, let loose a silent scream. I was born a heathen, have never mouthed a sincere prayer. I tell you this, dear soul, because I felt the same way down in the well. A demon plucked something from inside of me. Hollow, a cool blade had cut deep. When my sister was sick, my body broke out in angry yellow boils. I attacked each with a needle, squeezing the pus into small vials. On the day of her funeral, heavy rains turned the hillside cemetery into a muddy mound. Hailstorm cracking a window. I drank and was healed. I painted in oil on an unprimed canvas, the cemetery, mourners, my sister in her death shroud. I etched a small demon by the edge. My flesh sated. It all came true. I climbed out of the well, ready to sing. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Let's give the poets a round of applause. First thing, everyone, we have books for sale. Poets will be signing books. If you could please help put your chairs up against one of the walls, that'd be great.
Thank you, James. I like to have scheduled time, do stuff when I can, able. What is your weekend? What are you doing? Stick around, going back to Towns Unknown.
I'm here, up here. Yeah, our friends have been in town, they're giving us running around like that.
thank
Yeah.
you. Oh, like
Yeah, you like it. Thank you.
Good job, Chief.
Thank you.
Someone in the chat. Do you have them printed out there? I'd love to add these ones just to the digital archives.
No, I always try to like.
Yeah, I think it was.
Good, I said, that was a little, it's a rainy night.
Yeah.
That's okay. I do serious things too.
You also want your books.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, we'll hear that.
Sorry.